Thank you both so much for taking the time today. I really appreciate it. This film is gorgeous. I want to talk to you about your collaboration to create these looks. So what was that like?
It's amazing.
It was for me wonderful.
I think that it always. I come up with an idea, and then I draw hair on the sketch because the character needs to have some hair, but it's I always know that it's going to be somebody else's decision about how we're going to develop that, and I just hope that I get close to that when I'm envisioning what it might be. But then to collaborate with Francis was absolutely glorious, really. There was a huge connection in how we saw what this world might be, which was really wonderful for me. It made it so much easier than other experiences that I've had.
That's nice, thank you. No, for me it was wonderful. I mean, Paul, costume designer, and Paul obviously started much earlier than we do with my department. So when I was so inspired by when I first met Paul, and all his drawings and everything up to then, they were absolutely wonderful. And I mean, directly, hopefully I brought to Paul's artwork as well, even some more that would add to the overall look. But I took so much from Paul's fabrics and textures and everything that inspired me for what to do with the hair and the makeup. And I think one of the wonderful creations that really came together well was finding a new look for the Munchkins. Because that, with
That was
Paul
big.
and Nathan,
was
it was a huge thing to achieve because there were so many different ideas.
Yeah.
And we were trying to find something new that was acceptable, everyday life, not fantasy, would live in our world, wouldn't jump out.
Identifiable as well. I mean, I know that was
Right.
very important for John. That he wanted to be able to see a character across the room and be able to identify that as a Munchkin in a way that was honoring and respectful, but definitely specific to that group of people.
Yeah.
I love it. Francis, I got to ask you about finding the perfect green, because that's going to be so hard to make Alfalfa green, and then you work with green screens. So can you talk about really finding the perfect color?
Yeah. Well, the green screens can change colours to blue, so that wasn't
That's
a problem.
true.
That was the easy bit. But to find it, to find the green and to make any artist who was wearing it, and Cynthia, be able to wear it, look beautiful, not look like face paint, still look like a skin. That was the hardest thing. But just developing a product that reflected the light rather than absorbed it, and that's something that we found that was new. Also, not to destroy Paul's costumes, because you couldn't. I mean, it's not a small thing, it's a huge thing, because you couldn't have that colour rubbing off on everything. You couldn't have it on the pink dresses. Paul would never be able to make enough costumes to change every day. It's very important. It's not,
Definitely. I mean, I also had looks that were sheer as well. So
Yeah.
we see green skin through a black fabric, through a sheer. So if Alphabet is made up, if Cynthia was made up, then we needed to make sure that it wasn't going to rub off on the clothes.
And what Paul did quite a lot was, if it was a sheer that wasn't that, as long as it worked with Paul's the texture of the fabric, Paul lined them. So he Paul dyed fabrics and tight, whatever you call it.
There was stretch. It was Milliskin, or it
Yeah.
was stretch that matched the makeup color, so that we could arrive at so you really couldn't tell. You thought that you were looking at her own skin. I mean, that was another way that we could easily manage it.
Yeah, for the day.
Yeah.
Like to get the day,
For the
to
day.
get
Yeah.
John's line.
Right.
Yeah. And then can you talk about the evolution of Alfalfa's dress? Because even just in the first part, we see her she comes into the Wicked Witch, right? So can you talk about finding that?
I mean, she with the first time we see her as a character, she's a little girl, and she is dressed in black. And the reason that we defined that choice was because she was still in mourning for her mother. And then as a character, and because of her being ostracized within the family, she kind of held to that. She was emotionally stuck within her growth in some ways, until she makes her way to Shiz, and then is given space to evolve and capture her own style. And that's first reflected in the uniform. If you notice in different stages, working your way through that time in Shiz, she goes from a silhouette that's very restrictive, it's a suit, a skirt suit, and then she moves into a dress, and then she moves into vest and a blouse and trousers with a kilt, and then she loses the kilt and she's just in the trousers. And so all of that was to give her this progression of adopting her own style and really embracing her expansive spirit.
Yeah. And one scene that I love, got to talk to you about, is the suits, the like rubber suits when they're dancing in the fountain. Like, you know what I'm talking about? Yes. Can you talk about finding those, because that was so great.
Well, I mean, if you actually look at the Baum the Baum book, there were illustrations, original illustrations of the flatheads, and so that was actually what the inspiration was for those characters. Little did I know that they were going to end up in the fountain, but we were able to manage that as well, and with hair, which is
I was gonna say, yeah, how hard is it for you when you know they're going to get soaking wet?
We didn't mind if they got soaking wet upright, but our choreographer decided that they would actually go onto their heads in the water and be spun round and then come up. And then you don't do one take, you do 50 takes. Yeah. So we got to the point where I had to say to John, I don't know how Paul's, that I didn't think the wigs would stand up to another spin round in the water. Right. But they were really original and a wonderful design, and I think complemented Paul's costume, which was phenomenal.
Definitely.
I think the overall effect was beautiful.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. I think this movie is gorgeous, and I can't wait for part 2. I'm ready for it now already.
Yeah. Thank you.